This kind of mind-related theme. So yeah, so I found my way of doing it. There weren't many others, so I didn't really have any role models per se, so I just found my own kind of route, and now that's led to what I'm doing now.
So do you consider yourself a magician or a conjurer or a mentalist? What sort of title do you put on yourself?
I try and avoid it, because I think it's a very nice thing if you can just, if what you do just becomes who you are, just becomes your name. So if I say I'm this, or I'm a magician, or I'm a then it's sort of, people may not accept me doing a documentary on X over there because hang on, you're the guy that does that, so why should we accept you doing that? So it's quite nice just being Darren Brown, and then whatever people want to, and then over the years I can kind of allow that to include different things. So, but if people ask, I mean, I would just say a kind of magician. I think it's you know, you have to take it with a pinch of salt. Some of it's rooted in magic conjuring tricks, some of it's rooted in psychological techniques, some of it's rooted in hypnosis, and it's kind of just a big sort of mixed up bag of all of those things. So I tend to say magician because then you sort of, when you say magician, people understand that you're not supposed to take it all absolutely on face value, and I think that's probably the most healthy attitude to take to it, and then from that, people kind of start to make up their own minds about what they should believe or not believe, which I think is fun.
One of our questions that came through was about how quite recently something you've started doing on TV is sort of debunking the fraudulent mediums and the so-called sort of psychic advisors and so on. And one of the questions was, did you ever have a moment where you thought about turning to the dark side?
No, I didn't really. A lot of magicians do. A lot of those few magicians that then found their way into mentalism, a lot of them do then make that jump to the dark side and start doing it not for real per se, but start pretending that they're real and saying that they're really putting you in touch with their loved ones and so on. In fact, there was one of the top name psychics that we all know comes absolutely from that tradition, and the woman that taught him, who absolutely herself was just from a kind of a showbiz kind of magic-y background, just taught him the kind of techniques and the way of doing it, got very upset when she realised that he was having, you know, TV shows and making out that it was all for real. So that's generally does tend to be what happens, because if you think about it, the amount of money that you can make if you say it's for real, because you immediately will pack out any venue. I don't know if you know sort of Doris Stokes, who was kind of this sort of previous generation. I feel like I can talk about her safely without upsetting anybody, but she was this very grandmotherly, sort of wouldn't hurt a fly kind of image of a woman. But so she'd turn up in a town, and there'd be, you know, a stack of letters already from people saying, oh, you know, my son died in this situation, and here's all the details in case he comes through. Because obviously what somebody like Doris wants on stage is information about someone that's passed on and how they died, so that she can then pass that off as something from the spirits. So she'd have a stack of mail. She'd then see people during the day. They'd come over. I heard this from somebody that worked on her crew. She'd have people from the town, whoever, would come and see her during the day and have readings done, during which, of course, she'd get a lot of information from them. Then she'd invite them to the shows in the evening. So these shows that she did in the evening were populated with people that she just knew, you know, a lot of this kind of information. So they're not stooges. They're perfectly, well, they're grieving people, really, but she sort of has already siphoned off all this information, so she can just relay it back. And you see the same thing with TV psychics. When you see the TV shows where there's a guy on stage doing it, what tends to happen, I've been along and seen this, is that before they start filming, the psychic comes out and says, okay, so is there anybody here who's hoping someone's going to come through? And of course, 100 hands go up. So he's like, who are you looking for? Oh, it's my uncle who drowned in a... Okay, and what's his name? All right, lovely. Anybody else? Blah, blah, blah. And just gets all the information from people who are happy to tell him because they genuinely and sincerely believe that that person's going to come through. So then he comes out and just starts feeding that information back. They, of course, burst into tears, which is what they want for the cameras. And it's a really horrible business. So I kind of... sailing close to that wind, to use a nautical, slightly confused metaphor, close to that line, I felt that I sort of had a responsibility to kind of just tell people about that kind of world. Not because, I mean, you know, we all believe what we want to believe, but I do think that you have to make... We should be able to go through life just being able to make the best decisions and having the best information so that we can make decisions. And the strange thing is nowadays that the whole thing about being open-minded is such a buzzword that it becomes overused, and you can become so open-minded that your brain falls out. You know, being open-minded is not about ignoring information, it's about accepting information. So, for example, if you're a chef and you know that you know, you're cooking for 200 people. You know, well, if I put arsenic in this soup, it's going to kill everybody. But hey, let's be open-minded. Put the arsenic in the soup. That isn't being open-minded. That's just sort of being stupid. That's not working with information that you have. So to take a skeptical approach, which just means to reserve judgment until the evidence comes in, and to work with what evidence you have. So if you know that psychics can either fake it using these techniques, or maybe fool themselves using certain kind of phenomena that can fall into place. If you know that there are things like cold reading that exist, which is a way of talking to people in a way that sounds like you know everything about them, but they'll just make the information fit. And anything from fraudulent techniques to very just sort of people that just very sincerely just sort of get misguided, but they really believe it in themselves. To take all that information first and go, okay, well, is it just that that's happening? And if it isn't, if it's something else, then that's amazing, and that would be an extraordinary thing to find out about. That isn't being closed-minded. That is being just how we should approach knowledge, isn't it? And how we should approach people making strong claims. You know, if somebody makes an amazing claim that they can do something, it's not enough for them just to say, well, it's true because I know it. I believe that Father Christmas exists, and it's just, well, just because I know that it's true. You have to come up with a bit more evidence than that. If it's an amazing claim, you need amazing evidence to go with it. So I do think that's important, and I think it's important just to inform people, not necessarily to change anyone's mind, but just so that they can have the information and know how these things can be faked or reproduced or cheated, so that then they can make the best decisions as to whether or not they then want to go and see those people and give them money to put them in touch with their dead relatives.
Do you feel like, you know, since you are sort of like TV's face of mentalism on Channel 4 and all over, that it's almost like your duty to kind of spread the word about this?
Well, I try not to be, I mean, you know, I have to strike a balance, because I think there are people who just go out to debunk, and I think that's fine. I think you need those people doing it, but it also can be just a bit joyless. It can be a little bit sort of witless, and I think it's because debunking for its own sake isn't particularly entertaining, so you don't necessarily engage people with it, so then you end up feeling you're just banging your head against a brick wall, so you can become embittered, which then just continues the cycle of a joyless kind of campaign. I think that's a problem with just debunking. So for me, I try and keep it as a bit of a subtext, or I'll do some programs that are just on that, and with the rest of it, I try and make sure that what I'm doing is hopefully interesting and engaging first, and that all that stuff is a kind of sort of comes with it, rather than just going out on a campaign saying no, this is fake, because I think it doesn't necessarily connect with people in the right way.
I suppose like last night with your oracle routine, you specifically said at the start, I am not a psychic.
Yeah.
But then you sort of showed how you could be seen to be psychic on stage.
Yes, and of course I get a lot of people going, he is psychic. You see, he protests that he isn't, but you see, that's, yeah. Which I welcome. I'm happy with that, yeah.